Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. That way, you'll always stay connected to our stories and never miss the next adventure. Cassidy had approximately 30 seconds to decide whether she was going to die in a fireball or just suffer through a really bad landing. She chose the latter, because she was an optimist like that. "Come on, you piece of junk," she muttered, wrestling with controls that had stopped responding 3 minutes ago when a chunk of space debris, probably someone's discarded fuel cell, because littering was apparently a universal constant, had punched through her starboard thruster. The cargo hauler screamed in protest, metal groaning like it was personally offended by the laws of physics. Just a little further. No, we're going down. The jungle moon of Ashara Prime rushed up to meet her with what she could only describe as aggressive enthusiasm. Trees that looked like they'd been designed by someone who'd never actually seen a tree, too tall, too thick, glowing with bioluminescent sap that was probably toxic, filled her viewport. Cassidy yanked the emergency brake, which did absolutely nothing except make a sad clicking sound, and braced for impact. The ship hit the canopy with a crunch that she felt in her teeth. Branches the size of her torso snapped like matchsticks. She bounced once, twice, then slammed into something solid enough to stop her forward momentum and rattle every filling in her mouth. The harness dug into her chest. Alarms blared. Somewhere behind her, cargo containers broke free and crashed into each other with the musical quality of a symphony composed entirely of disasters. Then, silence. Well, relative silence. The jungle outside was making noises that suggested it was very much alive and possibly interested in eating her. Cassidy sat there for a moment, taking inventory. Arms, still attached. Legs, present and accounted for. Head, pounding, but functional. Pride, shattered. But that had happened years ago when she'd taken this job in the first place. "Agricultural supplies," she said to the empty cockpit, unbuckling her harness with shaking fingers. "Just a simple run," they said. "Easy money," they said. "Nobody patrols the outer fringe," they said. She kicked open the cockpit door, which fell off its hinges entirely. Well, nobody except the debris field from the war that ended 20 years ago, apparently. The air outside hit her like a wet blanket soaked in humidity and regret. Ashara Prime had 3 suns, because one sun was for quitters, and even though 2 of them were currently setting, the third was still pumping out enough heat to make her flight suit feel like a personal sauna. She peeled it down to her waist, leaving just the tank top underneath, and surveyed the damage. Her ship, the Wandering Fool, which she'd named in a moment of self-awareness, was embedded nose first in what might have been a clearing before she'd arrived. Now it was more of a crash site decorated with her poor life choices. The hull was cracked, the landing gear was gone, and something was leaking that definitely shouldn't be leaking. Her cargo containers had split open, spilling crates of what were definitely, absolutely, 100% not weapons across the jungle floor. "Great," she said. "Just great. Insurance is going to love this." She climbed down, boots squelching in the moss that covered everything. The distress beacon was her first priority. She pulled the emergency kit from its compartment, thank God for small mercies, and activated it. The light blinked red twice, then died. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." She smacked it. The universal repair technique. Nothing. Okay. This is fine. This is totally fine." It was not fine. She was stranded on a moon that had a colony mortality rate of 60%, with no way to call for help, and night was falling. Well, 1/3 night. She still had 1 sun left, which gave her maybe 3 hours before full darkness. 3 hours to figure out how not to die. She gathered what she could: a plasma pistol with 1 charge pack, a medical kit that looked like it had been assembled by someone who'd only heard rumors about medicine, a water purifier, and some ration bars that tasted like cardboard had mated with disappointment. Not much, but she'd survived on less. The jungle was watching her. She could feel it. Every rustle of leaves, every distant call of something that sounded like it had too many teeth. It all reminded her that she was very much not at the top of the food chain here. She was setting up a basic perimeter around the wreckage, using cargo containers as makeshift walls, when she heard it. A sound that didn't belong. Not the ambient noise of the jungle, but something specific, something in pain. It came from deeper in the wreckage, past the split cargo bay. Cassidy's first instinct was to ignore it. Her second instinct was to check her plasma pistol's charge. Her third instinct, the one that always got her into trouble, was curiosity. This is how people die in horror vids, she informed herself, creeping toward the sound. They hear a noise, they investigate, they get eaten. Roll credits. But she kept moving anyway, because apparently she'd left her survival instincts back in civilized space. The cargo bay was a mess. Crates had exploded, scattering their contents. Okay, fine, they were weapons. Sue her, across the floor. And there, wedged between 2 containers, partially buried under a tarp, was something that made her stop dead. A Rixian cub. Oh, hell. Rixians were the galaxy's nightmare fuel. Apex predators that could tear through reinforced steel, hunt in packs, and had a documented taste for human flesh. They were the reason Ashara Prime's colony kept failing. They were the reason smart people didn't land here. And this one was tiny. Well, tiny for a Rixian, still the size of a large dog, with fur that shifted colors like oil on water, 6 legs ending in retractable claws, and a face that was somewhere between feline and something that evolution had designed specifically to haunt dreams. It was also very clearly dying. A deep gash ran across its flank, dark blood matting the fur. One of its forelegs was bent at an angle that made Cassidy's stomach turn. The cub's breathing was shallow, rapid. Its eyes, too intelligent, too aware, tracked her movement. "Okay," Cassidy said, taking a step back. "Okay, this is not my problem. This is very much not my problem. Your mom is probably nearby, and she's going to be very upset. And I would like to keep all my limbs, thank you." The cub made a sound, not a growl, something smaller, weaker, a whimper. "Oh, don't do that," Cassidy said. "Don't you dare do that." The cub's eyes closed, its breathing hitched. Cassidy stood there, having a very intense conversation with herself. The smart play was to walk away. Rixians were dangerous. Helping it could bring the whole pack down on her. She had her own survival to worry about. But then again, when had she ever made the smart play? "I'm going to regret this," she said, moving forward. "I'm going to regret this so much." She approached slowly, hands visible, making soft noises that she hoped translated to, "Please don't eat me," in Rixian. The cub watched her, but didn't move. Couldn't move, probably. Up close, the damage was worse. The gash was deep, possibly from her ship's debris during the crash. The broken leg was swelling. Without treatment, infection would set in. The cub would die slowly, painfully. "All right, Scraps," she said, because if she was going to do this, she was going to name it something ridiculous. "Let's see what we can do." The medical kit was designed for humans, but biology was biology. She had antiseptic, bandages, and a general-purpose painkiller that would either help or kill the cub faster. 50-50 odds. She cleaned the wound first, working quickly while the cub whined but didn't snap at her. Its eyes stayed locked on her face, watching, evaluating. Smart. Too smart. "Yeah, I know," she said, applying the antiseptic. "This hurts. Trust me. I'm not enjoying this either. Your mom is going to murder me, like, really, thoroughly murder me." The bandages went on next, wrapped tight to stop the bleeding. The leg was trickier. She didn't have a splint, so she improvised with pieces of cargo container and more bandages, immobilizing it as best she could. The painkiller was the gamble. She calculated the dosage based on body weight, said a quick prayer to whatever deity protected idiots, and administered it. The cub's breathing slowed, steadied. Its eyes drooped. "There you go," Cassidy said softly. "Sleep it off, Scraps. Maybe we'll both survive the night." She sat back, suddenly aware of how much her hands were shaking. The third sun was setting now, painting the jungle in shades of amber and shadow. She could see the first stars appearing through the canopy. Night was coming. The real night, when all three suns were down, and Ashara Prime showed its teeth. Cassidy dragged the cub, carefully, so carefully, out of the wreckage and into her makeshift camp. She positioned it near the small heating unit she'd salvaged, covered it with a thermal blanket, and settled down with her back against a cargo container. Her plasma pistol sat in her lap. 6 shots. Maybe 8, if she was lucky. The jungle's sounds changed as darkness fell. New calls, deeper and hungrier. Things moving through the undergrowth. The bioluminescent plants began to glow brighter, casting everything in an eerie blue-green light. Scraps slept on, sides rising and falling. And Cassidy kept watch, wondering if compassion was just another word for stupidity, and whether she'd live long enough to figure out the difference. The first sun would rise in 8 hours. She just had to survive until then. The thing about Ashara Prime that the travel brochures, if such things existed for death trap moons, never mentioned, was the sounds. Not the daytime sounds, which were bad enough, but the night sounds. The ones that made you reconsider every choice that had led you to this exact moment. Cassidy had been listening to them for 2 hours now, and her list of regrets was getting impressively long. "So," she said to the unconscious Rixian cub, because talking to herself felt too much like admitting she was alone. "Fun fact about me, I once turned down a perfectly good job flying medical supplies to core worlds, steady pay, benefits, a retirement plan. But no, I thought, that's too boring. Where's the adventure in that?" Scraps's ear twitched, still breathing. That was something. "Instead, I took a job with a smuggler who paid in cash and didn't ask questions, which should have been my first clue, really. People who don't ask questions usually don't want to hear the answers." Something moved in the darkness beyond her perimeter. Large, deliberate. Cassidy's hand tightened on the plasma pistol. The movement stopped, waiting. "See? This is why I prefer space," she continued, voice steady despite her racing heart. "In space, things are simple. Vacuum wants to kill you, so you stay inside the ship. Easy. But here, everything wants to kill you, and it's all very personal about it." The cub's breathing hitched. Cassidy leaned over, checking the bandages by the light of the bioluminescent moss. Still holding. The leg was swollen, but not worse. Small victories. "Your fever's getting worse, though," she said, touching the cub's flank. "Hot. Too hot. Which is just fantastic. I don't suppose Rixian physiology responds to human antibiotics? No? Yeah. Didn't think so." A new sound cut through the night. Clicking. Rhythmic and getting closer. Cassidy stood slowly, raising the pistol. The clicking multiplied, coming from multiple directions. Her blood went cold. They emerged from the tree line like nightmares given form. Six-legged, low to the ground, covered in chitinous plates that reflected the bioluminescent light in nauseating patterns. Their heads were mostly mouth, and those mouths were mostly teeth. Veshka, pack hunters, and she'd just rung the dinner bell by bleeding all over their territory. "Okay," Cassidy said, positioning herself between the creatures and Scraps. "Okay, this is fine. This is totally manageable." There were 6 of them. No, 8. No. She stopped counting because it wasn't helping. The lead Veshka crept forward, clicking mandibles, testing the air. The others fanned out, surrounding the camp. Smart, coordinated. Absolutely not what she needed right now. "Back off," Cassidy said, aiming at the leader. "I've got 6 shots and a really bad attitude. First one to rush me gets a face full of plasma." The Veshka clicked at each other, communicating. Then the leader took another step forward. Cassidy fired. The plasma bolt lit up the night, catching the creature square in its center mass. It shrieked, a sound like metal scraping metal, and collapsed. The others scattered back, but didn't flee. "5 shots left," Cassidy announced. "Who's next?" Behind her, Scraps stirred, made a sound, not quite a growl, more like a cough, but the Veshka heard it. Their clicking intensified. They knew what a Rixian was, even a cub, but they also knew it was wounded. 2 of them rushed from different angles. Cassidy spun, fired at the first, hit, spun back, fired at the second, missed, fired again, hit. The creature went down, thrashing. "2 shots," she said, breathing hard. "2 shots, and way too many of you." The remaining Veshka regrouped, circling wider now. Learning. They'd rush together next time, overwhelm her. She couldn't stop them all. Scraps tried to stand. Failed. Tried again, managing to get its good legs under it. The splinted leg held awkwardly. The cub swayed, clearly disoriented, but it growled. A real growl this time. Weak but defiant. "Hey, no, stay down," Cassidy said. "You're going to hurt yourself worse." The cub ignored her, positioning itself beside her. Facing the Veshka. Standing with her. Something in Cassidy's chest did a complicated thing that she absolutely did not have time to analyze. "All right then," she said. "Guess we're doing this together." The Veshka charged. Cassidy fired once, twice. Both shots hit, both creatures fell, and then the plasma pistol clicked empty. She threw it at the nearest Veshka, which dodged easily, and grabbed the only other weapon she had. A piece of broken cargo container, jagged and sharp. Not ideal. But then again, nothing about this situation was ideal. The first Veshka lunged. Cassidy swung, felt the impact jar her arms, saw dark ichor spray. The creature fell back. Another came from her left. She kicked it, felt chitin crack under her boot, stabbed down with the makeshift blade. Scraps snapped at one that got too close, despite barely being able to stand. The Veshka retreated, wary of those jaws even on a cub. They fought back to back, well, back to side, given. The height difference, for what felt like hours, but was probably minutes. Cassidy's arms burned. Her lungs screamed. She was going to die on this stupid moon because she'd stopped to help a creature that would probably eat her given half a chance. Then, suddenly, the Veshka stopped. They didn't retreat. Just stopped. Frozen. Clicking frantically at each other. Cassidy didn't lower her weapon. "What? What's wrong? I mean, besides the obvious." The Veshka scattered. Not a retreat. A rout. Pure panic. They vanished into the jungle like they'd never been there, leaving only their dead behind. "Okay," Cassidy panted. That's That's weird, right? That's not just me. Scraps made a sound. Not a growl. Something else. Almost like a chirp. Then Cassidy heard it. Footfalls. Heavy. Deliberate. Coming from the jungle. Coming toward them. "Oh no," she whispered. "Oh no, no, no." The shape that emerged from the darkness was massive. Easily 3 times the size of Scraps. Built like a tank had mated with a nightmare. Its fur was darker, scarred in places, and its eyes, those too intelligent eyes, locked onto Cassidy with an intensity that made her forget how to breathe. An adult Rixian. The mother. Cassidy's improvised weapon suddenly felt very, very inadequate. She didn't move. Couldn't move. This was it. This was how she died. Eaten by an angry mother defending her cub, which was almost noble except for the part where she'd be dead. The mother approached slowly, each step measured, powerful muscles rippling under that color-shifting fur. She could cross the distance in seconds if she wanted. Could tear Cassidy apart before she even registered the movement. But she didn't. The mother stopped at the edge of the camp, looked at Cassidy, looked at Scraps, looked at the bandages, the splint, the thermal blanket. Scraps chirped again, limped forward on 3 legs, dragging the splinted one. The mother made a sound, low, rumbling, concerned, and moved to meet her cub. Cassidy stood frozen, watching as the mother sniffed Scraps thoroughly, checking for injuries, assessing the damage. The cub nuzzled against its mother, making soft sounds. Then the mother turned back to Cassidy. This was it. The moment of truth. Cassidy had helped the cub, sure, but she was still human. Still the species that had been trying to colonize Rixian worlds for decades. Still the enemy. The mother took a step forward. Cassidy's hand tightened on her weapon, knowing it was useless. The mother took another step. Then she sat down. Just sat. Right there, 10 feet away, watching Cassidy with those impossibly intelligent eyes, not attacking, not threatening, waiting. Cassidy's voice came out as a croak. She cleared her throat. "I helped. The cub. It was hurt. I couldn't leave it." The mother tilted her head. Listening? Understanding? Impossible to tell. Cassidy slowly, very slowly, lowered her weapon, showed her empty hands. "I'm not going to hurt it. Either of you. I just want to survive the night. That's all." The mother watched her for a long moment. Then, in a movement that defied everything Cassidy knew about Rixian behavior, she settled down fully, curled her body around Scraps, who immediately snuggled into her mother's warmth. But the mother's eyes never left Cassidy. The message was clear. You may stay. For now. Cassidy let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Her legs gave out, and she sat down hard on the ground. "Okay," she said to the universe at large. "Okay, this is happening. I'm camping with Rixians. This is my life now." The second sun began to rise, painting the jungle in shades of gold. 1 down, 2 to go. The second sun climbed slowly, turning the jungle from nightmare territory into merely terrifying. Cassidy hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. Not with a fully grown Rixian 15 feet away, watching her with eyes that suggested she was being evaluated on criteria she didn't understand. Scraps, on the other hand, was sleeping peacefully, curled against its mother's bulk. The fever seemed to have broken. Small mercies. Cassidy's stomach growled, reminding her that she hadn't eaten since before the crash. She pulled out a ration bar, unwrapped it, and took a bite. It tasted like someone had compressed all the joy out of food and left only the nutritional obligation. The mother's ears perked up, watching. "Want some?" Cassidy held out the bar, then immediately felt ridiculous. Yeah, no, you're a carnivore. This probably smells like poison to you. Which, fair. It kind of tastes like poison to me. The mother didn't move, just kept watching. Right, okay, this is fine. Just having breakfast with a creature that could bite my head off. Normal day. Nothing weird about this. She finished the ration bar in silence, then checked her water supply. The purifier was working at least. She had enough for maybe 3 days if she was careful. After that, she'd have to risk the local water sources, which was a great way to discover exciting new parasites. The mother stood suddenly, and Cassidy's heart jumped into her throat. But the Rixian wasn't looking at her. She was looking at the jungle, head tilted, listening to something Cassidy couldn't hear. Then she moved, fluid and silent despite her size, disappearing into the undergrowth. "Wait, where are you?" Cassidy started, but the mother was already gone, leaving Cassidy alone with the cub. "Great," Cassidy muttered. "Is this a test? This feels like a test." Scraps stirred, blinking awake. The cub looked around, noticed its mother was gone, and made a questioning sound. Then it looked at Cassidy. "She'll be back," Cassidy said, hoping that was true. "Probably just hunting. Or, deciding whether to eat me. Could go either way." The cub tried to stand, wobbled, and sat back down with a huff that sounded almost frustrated. "Yeah, that leg's going to take time," Cassidy said. She moved closer, slowly, carefully, and checked the bandages. Still secure. The swelling had gone down slightly. "You're healing, though. That's good. Means I didn't completely botch the field medicine." Scraps watched her work, head tilted in a gesture that was eerily similar to its mother's. Curious. Assessing. "You're smart, aren't you?" Cassidy said softly. "Like, really smart, not just animal smart. Something more." The cub's eyes, shifting colors like oil slicks, purple to green to gold, met hers, held her gaze. "Yeah, definitely something more." The mother returned 20 minutes later, and Cassidy's theory about hunting was confirmed when she dropped something at the edge of camp. Something dead. Something that had been alive very recently. The mother tore into her kill, efficient and brutal. Scraps chirped excitedly, trying again to stand. This time the mother moved to help, supporting the cub as it limped over to share the meal. Cassidy looked away. Not squeamish, exactly, but watching apex predators eat was a reminder of exactly how fragile she was in comparison. Then something landed near her feet. She looked down. A portion of the kill. Fresh meat, still warm, deliberately placed. She looked up. The mother was watching her, waiting. "Oh," Cassidy said. "Oh, you're sharing?" The mother made a sound, not aggressive, almost encouraging. "I appreciate the gesture, really, but I can't." Cassidy's stomach growled again, betraying her. She looked at the meat, looked at her dwindling ration bars, looked at the mother, who was still watching. This was an offering, a gesture of, what? Trust? Alliance? Refusing it might be an insult. "Okay," Cassidy said. "Okay, when in Rome or on Ashara Prime or wherever." She pulled out her utility knife, cut a small piece, and, after a moment's hesitation, ate it, raw, warm, definitely not passing any health inspections. Also, surprisingly, not terrible. The mother made a sound that might have been approval, then returned to her own meal. Cassidy sat there, processing the fact that she'd just eaten raw alien meat offered by a creature that was supposed to be a mindless killing machine, and wondering when her life had become a nature documentary gone wrong. The second sun reached its peak. Heat pressed down like a physical weight. Cassidy found shade near the wreckage, and, to her surprise, The mother moved Scraps into the shade as well, close to Cassidy, close enough to touch. "So we're doing this now?" Cassidy said. "We're a team?" Scraps settled down next to her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from its body. The cub's breathing was steady now, stronger. Cassidy, against every instinct screaming at her, reached out and gently touched the cub's head. The fur was softer than she expected, warm and shifting colors under her palm. Scraps leaned into the touch. "Yeah," Cassidy said quietly. "We're a team." The mother watched this interaction. Then, in a move that nearly stopped Cassidy's heart, settled down on her other side. Cassidy was now sandwiched between two Rixians. If they wanted her dead, she'd never see it coming. But they didn't want her dead. They wanted… what? Companionship? Alliance? Understanding? "You know what the galaxy says about your species?" Cassidy said, speaking to the mother even though she probably couldn't understand. "They say you're monsters, mindless killers, that you hunt humans for sport, that you can't be reasoned with, that the only good Rixian is a dead one." The mother's ear flicked, listening. "But you're not mindless, are you? You knew I helped your cub. You brought me food. You're protecting me just like you're protecting Scraps." Cassidy laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Which means everything I was taught is wrong. Or a lie. Probably a lie." The mother shifted, and Cassidy tensed, but the Rixian just adjusted her position, getting comfortable. They stayed like that as the second sun crossed the sky. An impossible tableau. Human and Rixians resting together. Cassidy even dozed off at some point, exhaustion finally overwhelming caution. She woke to thunder. The sky had gone dark. Not night dark, but storm dark. Clouds the color of bruises rolled across the sky, and lightning arced between them. Not normal lightning. This was Ashara Prime's infamous electrical storms, the kind that could vaporize trees and turn sand to glass. The mother was already on her feet, agitated. Scraps was chirping in distress. "Yeah, I know," Cassidy said, scrambling up. "My shelter's not going to hold. We need…" The mother was already moving, gently gripping Scraps by the scruff and lifting the cub. She looked at Cassidy, then at the jungle, then back at Cassidy. The message was clear. "Follow me. You know somewhere safe?" Cassidy grabbed her pack, stuffing in what supplies she could. "Lead the way." The mother moved fast, even carrying Scraps. Cassidy struggled to keep up, branches whipping at her face, roots trying to trip her. The first drops of rain hit like bullets. Lightning struck a tree 50 feet away, and the explosion of superheated wood sent splinters flying. Then she saw it. A cave entrance, partially hidden by undergrowth. The mother disappeared inside, and Cassidy followed without hesitation. The cave was larger than she expected. Deep, dark, but dry, and that was what mattered. Lightning illuminated the entrance in strobing flashes. The storm hit with full force, wind howling like something alive and angry. Rain came down in sheets so thick it looked solid. They were safe. For now. Cassidy pulled out her emergency light, a small glow stick that cast everything in pale blue. The cave stretched back further than the light reached. She swept the beam around, looking for threats, and froze. Equipment. Old, covered in dust and moss, but unmistakably human. Research stations, computer terminals, storage containers with faded logos. What the hell? She moved deeper, the mother watching but not stopping her. The equipment was ancient by tech standards, maybe 20, 30 years old. Abandoned. But why? She found a terminal that still had power somehow, booted it up. The screen flickered to life, and Cassidy started reading the logs. And with each line, her understanding of everything shifted. This had been a research station, xenobiology, studying Rixians. The researchers had concluded, definitively, that Rixians were sentient, intelligent, capable of complex thought, emotion, social structures. They'd recommended protected status, conservation efforts, first contact protocols. The project had been shut down, funding pulled, files classified. The reason, buried in the final log, economic concerns. Rixian worlds contain valuable resources. Sentient status would complicate colonization efforts. Recommend suppression of findings. Cassidy read it twice, 3 times. They knew, she whispered. They knew, and they buried it. The mother approached, looking at the screen. At the images of Rixians displayed there. Research photos, behavioral studies, evidence of everything humanity had chosen to ignore. "I'm sorry," Cassidy said, and meant it. "I'm so sorry." Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, something fundamental had changed. The storm lasted 6 hours. Cassidy spent most of it reading through the research files, her anger growing with each log entry. Dr. Amara Okonkwo had led the research team. 15 people, 5 years of work, thousands of hours of observation and interaction. They'd documented everything: Rixian family structures, communication patterns, problem-solving abilities, even what appeared to be artistic expression in the way they marked their territories. The final video log was dated 31 years ago. Dr. Okonkwo sat in front of the camera, exhausted and furious. "This is my last entry," she said. "Corporate has made their decision. The Rixians are to be classified as non-sentient wildlife. Our findings are being sealed. They're sending security to shut us down tomorrow." She paused, looking off-camera at something. "We tried. We documented everything. We proved beyond any doubt that these beings are people. But people don't matter when there's profit involved." The video ended. Cassidy sat back, feeling sick. The mother had settled nearby with scraps, watching Cassidy with those 2 knowing eyes. Did she understand? Could she sense what Cassidy had learned? "They were right about you," Cassidy said quietly. "Dr. Okonkwo and her team. You're not animals. You're people. And we've been treating you like pests for 3 decades. The mother tilted her head, made a sound, low, rumbling, almost like speech. Cassidy couldn't understand the words, if they were words, but she understood the tone. Acknowledgement, sadness, resignation. They knew. The Rixians knew what humans thought of them, and they'd been defending their homes, their families, against an enemy that refused to see them as anything but obstacles. "I can't fix this," Cassidy said. "I'm nobody. Just a cargo hauler with a criminal record and a ship that's currently scattered across half a mile of jungle. But maybe—" She looked at the terminal, at the files. "Maybe I can do something." She pulled out her personal data drive, every pilot carried one, for emergencies, and started copying. Everything. Every log. Every video. Every piece of research. The terminal was old. The transfer was slow. But she had time. The storm wasn't letting up. Scraps limped over, curious about what she was doing. The cub sniffed at the terminal, then at Cassidy's data drive, then made a questioning sound. "Insurance," Cassidy said. "The kind that might actually matter. If I can get this out, get it to the right people, maybe things change. Maybe they don't. But at least I'll have tried." The cub settled down next to her, resting its head on her leg. The weight was warm and solid and trusting in a way that made Cassidy's throat tight. The mother watched this, then did something that Cassidy would remember for the rest of her life. She approached the terminal, looked at the screen showing images of Rixians, and touched it with one massive paw. Gentle, deliberate. Then she looked at Cassidy and made a sound. Not a growl, not a roar. Something softer, almost like a question. "Yeah," Cassidy said, understanding somehow. "I'll tell them. I'll make them listen." The transfer completed just as the storm began to break. Cassidy pocketed the drive like it was made of gold and hope. The third sun was rising when they emerged from the cave. The jungle looked different, washed clean, steaming in the new heat, alive with sounds of creatures celebrating survival. Cassidy's camp was destroyed, her ship even more damaged than before, but she was alive, and she wasn't alone. They made their way back together, the mother leading, Scraps limping alongside Cassidy. The cub was stronger now, putting weight on the splinted leg. Healing fast. Rixian physiology was impressive. At the wreckage, Cassidy dug through the remains of her supplies. The distress beacon was still dead, but she had another option: the ship's emergency transmitter. It was designed to survive crashes, buried deep in the engineering section. If she could reach it, activate it, someone would eventually pick up the signal. Eventually being the key word. Could be days, could be weeks. She started digging through debris, and, to her surprise, the mother helped, using her massive strength to shift wreckage that Cassidy couldn't budge. Working together. A team. It took 3 hours, but they found it. The transmitter was intact, miraculously. Cassidy activated it, and the light blinked green. Active. Broadcasting. "Okay," she said, sitting back. "Okay, now we wait." Scraps chirped, pawing at something in the debris. Cassidy looked over. The cub had found one of the ration bars, was sniffing it with obvious disgust. "Yeah, I know. They're terrible," Cassidy said, laughing despite everything. "Trust me, your mom's cooking is way better." The mother made a sound that might have been amusement. They spent the day in an odd sort of domesticity. The mother hunted, brought back food. Cassidy changed Scraps's bandages, pleased to see the wound healing cleanly. They rested in the shade during the peak heat. Cassidy told stories about her life, her travels, the galaxy beyond this moon. The Rixians listened, or seemed to, and sometimes the mother would make sounds in response. Conversation, maybe, or at least the attempt at it. As the third sun began its descent, Cassidy heard it, the distant whine of engines. "That's a ship," she said, standing. "That's actually a ship. They got the signal." The mother stood as well, alert, protective. She moved between Cassidy and the sky, where the ship would appear. "No, it's okay," Cassidy said. "They're here for me, to rescue me." But as the ship descended, breaking through the canopy, Cassidy's relief curdled into something else. It wasn't a rescue ship. It was a salvage vessel. Corporate markings. The kind of ship that showed up to crashes to recover cargo and didn't ask too many questions about survivors. The kind of ship that would have weapons and scanners and would definitely detect the Rixians. "Hide," Cassidy said urgently. "You need to hide. Now." The mother understood the tone, if not the words. She grabbed Scraps, started to retreat into the jungle. "Wait," Cassidy said. She pulled off her thermal blanket, the one she'd used to cover Scraps, and pressed it to the cub's face. "Remember me, okay? Remember that some of us tried." Scraps licked her hand. The mother met her eyes one last time, and Cassidy saw something there. Gratitude, trust, hope. Then they were gone, melting into the jungle like ghosts. The salvage ship landed in a clearing 50 feet away. The ramp descended, and 3 crew members emerged. Rough-looking, armed. The kind of people who worked salvage, because legitimate shipping wouldn't hire them. "Well, well," the leader said, a man with scars and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Looks like someone survived. Lucky you." "Lucky me," Cassidy agreed, keeping her voice neutral. "Thanks for the pickup. My beacon was damaged." "We got your emergency transmitter. Took us a while to get here." He looked around at the wreckage. "Cargo hauler, right? What were you carrying?" "Agricultural supplies," Cassidy lied smoothly. "Total loss, I'm afraid." "Shame." He didn't sound like he believed her. "See anything interesting while you were waiting? This moon's got a reputation." "Just bugs and humidity," Cassidy said. "Why?" "Scanners picked up some large heat signatures nearby. Rixian-sized." His smile widened. "There's a bounty on their pelts. Good money. You see any?" Cassidy's blood went cold, but she kept her expression, bored. "Didn't see a single one. Just me and the wreckage. Honestly, I'm disappointed. All that reputation, and not even one monster sighting." He studied her for a long moment. Cassidy met his gaze, relaxed, unconcerned. Just a pilot who wanted off this rock. "All right," he said finally. "Grab your gear. Let's get out of here before something does show up." Cassidy collected her pack, making sure the data drive was secure in her pocket, and followed them to the ship. As they lifted off, she looked down at the jungle. Saw nothing. No movement. No sign of the Rixians. Good. Inside the ship, the crew mostly ignored her. They were more interested in scanning the wreckage, calculating salvage value. Cassidy sat in the passenger bay, exhausted and wired, her hand unconsciously touching the data drive through her pocket. The leader came back after an hour. "We're dropping you at the nearest station. Ashara Colony, about 6 hours from here." "Perfect," Cassidy said. "You sure you didn't see any Rixians?" he asked again. "Those heat signatures were pretty clear." "Maybe they were there," Cassidy said with a shrug. "Maybe they were smart enough to avoid the crashed ship and the human." "Ever think of that?" He frowned. "Rixians aren't smart. They're animals." "Right," Cassidy said. "Animals. I forgot." He left, and Cassidy closed her eyes, seeing the mother's face, Scrap's trusting weight on her leg, Dr. Okonkwo's furious final log. Animals. Sure. Ashara Colony was a dump, but it had what Cassidy needed: a public data terminal and a connection to the galactic network. She waited until the salvage crew had left, then found the seediest bar in the station and rented a terminal in the back. The research files uploaded slowly. She sent copies everywhere she could think of: news networks, scientific journals, conservation groups, even a few politicians who'd made noise about ethical colonization. Most would probably ignore it. Some would bury it. But maybe, just maybe, one would care. She titled the data dump simply, "The Rixian Files: What They Didn't Want You to Know." Then she hit send and sat back, heart pounding. It took 3 days for the first response. A conservation group wanted to verify the data. Then a news network picked it up. Then another. Within a week, it was everywhere. The Galactic Net's latest scandal. Proof of sentient species being classified as wildlife for corporate profit. The backlash was immediate. Protests. Political pressure. Calls for investigations. The company that had buried the original research saw its stock plummet. Ashara Prime's colonization was suspended pending review. Cassidy watched it all from a cheap hotel room, drinking terrible coffee and wondering if it would be enough. A month later, she got a job offer. A conservation group running interference on Rixian worlds, protecting them from poachers and illegal colonization. The pay was terrible. The work was dangerous. It was exactly what she needed. She took it. 6 months into the job, She was back on Ashara Prime. Different region, different mission, but the same jungle. The same three suns. She was setting up monitoring equipment when she heard it. A sound that made her freeze. A chirp. Familiar. Impossible. Scraps emerged from the undergrowth, fully grown now, moving on all 6 legs without a trace of a limp. The cub, not a cub anymore, approached cautiously, sniffing the air. Then recognition. A happy chirp. Scraps bounded forward, nearly knocking Cassidy over. "Hey," Cassidy said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Hey, you remember me?" The mother appeared next, moving with that same deliberate grace. She approached Cassidy and, in a gesture that transcended species, touched her massive head to Cassidy's shoulder. Not a threat. A greeting. A thank you. Cassidy reached up, touched the mother's face. "You're welcome," she whispered. They stayed like that for a moment, human and Rixians, connected by something deeper than language. Then Scraps pulled away, chirping excitedly, and bounded into the jungle. The mother followed, pausing once to look back at Cassidy. The message was clear. We're okay. We're safe. Because of you. Cassidy watched them disappear, then returned to her equipment. She had work to do. Monitoring to set up. A whole planet to help protect. Later, when she was packing up for the day, she found something near her gear. A small carved token, made from what looked like bone or wood. Rixian craftsmanship. She'd seen examples in the research files. A gift. A reminder. She smiled, tucked it into her pocket next to the data drive she still carried, and headed back to her ship. The 3 suns were setting, painting the jungle in gold and amber and hope. And somewhere in that jungle, a family of Rixians was safe. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough to undo decades of damage. But it was a start. And sometimes, Cassidy thought, starting was the hardest part.